Didn't think we'd be talking about this. I got to be honest. We are really in uncharted territory. The Trump administration has been so vocal about the Fed chair and focusing now on Jerome Powell's sworn testimony, information he provided to Congress, some $2.5 billion in renovations at the agency's D.C. headquarters. What can you tell us about this? First, where we are. Secondly, give us some historical perspective on this.
Okay, well, Sean, good to be with you, and a Happy New Year to you. The first thing, let me just make one little remark about the markets. They were a little bit more mixed than your setup report, because gold hit a new high today, a new all-time high, and so did silver. So that's kind of a negative on what's going on, shall we say. But let me be more specific about this most recent attack or threatened attack on Powell and set the table. And that is, I've been a longtime critic of the Fed, and the main reason for my criticism is based on the fact that it ignores the quantity theory of money. And the quantity theory of money, just in simple terms, says if you change the rate of growth in the money supply, eventually you're going to change economic activity and inflation. And Powell has rejected that. So I've been very negative on Powell and very negative on the Fed. And my most recent book, Making Money Work, which was released May 6th, is a 343-page critique, a heavyweight critique of the Fed. So that's where I'm coming from intellectually and from a policy point of view. Now, as far as the case against Powell goes, it's a ridiculous case, because the case, apparently the grounds for it, as you said, were the fact that the renovations to the Fed premises were over budget and over time. And this is a classic government operation. There's no government agency or bureau that does any project that isn't over budget, over time, over and over again. So the whole basis for the thing is kind of a joke, actually. If the Department of Justice was suing all the heads of agencies and bureaus because they were running over budget and over time, they'd have so many lawsuits going, you couldn't shake a stick at the thing.
Okay.
So that's basically my take on the attack itself per se. It's a very third world kind of thing. It's a kind of thing that you see in the third world, but you don't see it in the G20 or anything even close to the G20.
You know, and Steve, Powell really has stayed above the fray so far, not really engaging with Trump on the repeated taunts and insults. But Powell did come out Sunday with a very strong defense. What's your reaction to the way the Fed chief chose to respond to the DOJ?
Oh, I think Powell said what he had to say, and he said it very well. So he did what he had to do, and he did it well.
Okay, so you pointed out that gold, silver, precious metals going up. Now, former Fed chairs, as we have told you, were stunned and appalled, and you can choose the adjective, whatever you want, moving on from the moment they found out about this. But the markets did have this tepid response so far. I want to get your insight to what you think we need to watch out for in the days coming ahead, because this thing isn't going away.
Oh, I think the markets are just basically completely asleep at the wheel, particularly the bond market, because the big problem that we're going to face this year, and Trump will ultimately pay the cost, is that the Fed is accommodating Trump's policy position, and they're loosening monetary policy. In December, they went from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing, indicating that they'd buy $40 billion of T-bills issued by the Treasury, which they've started to do, by the way.
Right.
And what does this mean? Loosening monetary policy. Again, based on my thinking, based on the quantity theory of money, this tells me we're not going to get the inflation genie back in the bottle. They're never going to meet the inflation target of 2%. And as a result of that, we'll have this huge affordability problem hanging over the elections coming up. And I think the Republicans are going to pay a big cost.
Steve, we only have.
It's not going away because inflation isn't going away, because instead of continuing to tighten monetary policy, keep it tight, and get the inflation rate stabilized down at the 2% level, they're going to let it rip again.
Okay, real quickly, Steve, is this going to affect the Fed's decision when it meets next to talk about interest rates?
I don't think it will, because Trump has fired basically a machine gun at the Fed ever since he took office in January of last year. So this is just the latest. Maybe it is the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
It is something.
But I think it's just. I'm not surprised by it at all.
Okay.
And Trump saying he didn't know anything about it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
He knew very well about it. That's a big fairy tale that somehow he didn't know this was coming down the pike. And by the way, if you look at over budget, over time,
right,
over and over again, Trump wants to increase the biggest department's budget in the United States is the Defense Department.
Yeah.
It's the home of waste, fraud, and abuse in the Defense Department. He wants to increase that from 1 trillion to 1.5 trillion this next year. So that shows you where he's coming from.
Indeed.
This whole over budget thing, it's totally ridiculous.